Have you ever noticed that the highest paid remote jobs are often the most boring? To be honest, you probably haven't, as most people only talk about the flashy ways to make money online. However, they often ignore the ones that aren't considered cool. But the problem with cool remote jobs is that the competition is sky high, whereas the ones that aren't as popular are almost always hiring because people don't even know they exist. You see, I made my millions in the radio control model industry, as well as investing in the stock market. Many people would consider that pretty boring. So I'm living proof that boring and sometimes even nerdy jobs pay extremely well. That's why today I'm going to be revealing my top 7 boring but high paying remote jobs. First up is a short form strategist. Believe it or not, if you're guilty of a late night TikTok scroll, then you probably know more about short form content than someone with a film degree. This job is all about spotting viral moments in long form videos and then telling editors what to cut and what to keep in. Don't worry, this doesn't involve creating content yourself or being on camera. It's purely a strategic role. For each of these jobs, I'm going to be looking at their ranking in these 5 different categories, and then we're going to put them head to head to see what job comes out on top. If you haven't already guessed, I've designed these like huge top trump cards that I used to like playing with when I was a kid. Let's start with the category you guys probably care about the most, earning power. Now, this is a hard one because the better you get, the more you'll be able to earn. Indeed.com puts a salary range between $22,000 and $172,000, but that's because there are so many different things you can offer as a short form strategist. So if you're just starting out, I think $48,000 is a very realistic estimate. Next, let's dig into the beginner score. This one is super easy to start as you don't have to learn how to edit or film videos. Instead, you can just focus on coming up with the best hooks, learning video pacing, and cracking the code for viral videos. That's why in this category, it ranks a solid 9 out of 10. Next is growth potential. This is important when picking a job, as you want to know that there's the ability to earn more as you get better. If you want to earn closer to those higher figures that I mentioned earlier, then you'll need to take a more active role in planning out videos from scratch. You could also look into negotiating some kind of view-based bonus, so whenever a video goes viral, you also benefit financially. If you can prove your strategy works and gets good results for multiple clients, you'll be able to charge much more and hit much larger numbers. That's how you take it from $48,000 per year to $100,000 plus. For this reason, I've ranked this category as 8 out of 10. Now for a category I'm calling survivability. This is all about if the job would be around in the future. The last thing you want is for the job you pick to be replaced by AI in the next couple of years. Luckily, content strategy is something AI is incredibly bad at. That's why this gets a solid 8.5 out of 10. Finally, let's look at its freedom factor. Look, at the end of the day, clients don't care if you're in Texas or Thailand. They care about results. And as long as you perform, you can have the freedom to live and work anywhere. So it ranks 9.5 out of 10. As this job is the first one we've talked about, it's currently leading in all categories, but that won't be the case for much longer. Job number 2 is a customer service coordinator. Have you ever been on a website and needed some help only to be directed to an AI bot and just frantically typed in, "Talk to a human"? Well, if you choose to become a customer service coordinator, then you'll become the human on the other end. Think of it like being a middleman between bots and customers. As far as earning power goes, Indeed.com puts this between $52,000 and $120,000 per year. However, it is dependent on where the companies you work for are based and what they're selling. So let's go with a more conservative estimate of $65,000. This one is pretty beginner friendly because all you need are some great communication skills, a knack for problem solving, and a little bit of patience to understand the business you're working for. That's why it gets a solid 8 out of 10. Now, growth is where the potential of this job really shines. Every business, big or small, needs customer service, but not every company has the budget or time to hire a whole team, so this job really fills that hole. By having one person manage the bots and only step in when things go wrong, it means that it's far more efficient than bringing in, say, 5 or 10 support agents. So for these reasons, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. On to survivability. AI can handle the basics like password resets, order tracking, and frequently asked questions really well. But as soon as things get personal or emotional, it all falls flat. In fact, about 69% of UK customers say chatbots miss tone and frustration. So could this change in the future? Probably, but there's no telling how long. What I can say is that there's lots of money to be made in this right now, so I'm ranking it 7.5 out of 10 in this category. Now it's time for that all-important freedom factor. To be honest, once the bots are set up and tuned, you can work from home, a coffee shop, or even a weekend getaway, as long as you're available to jump in when things go sideways. So I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. All right, let's see how it stacks up against job number 1. So it's already taken the lead in 2 categories, earning power and growth potential. Let's see if the next job can put up a fight. Job number 3 is a remote tech specialist. If you've ever helped a family member figure out how to use Zoom or restart their iPad, this one might be for you. The thing is, technology can be pretty scary for older people, especially older business owners who know they need to embrace tech but just don't know how. That's what this job is all about. It involves going into small businesses and helping them set up smoother and faster systems with modern tools. This role typically brings in around $60,000 a year. This job is pretty easy to get started as you don't need any official qualifications. You'll just need to be confident using software and patient enough to walk people through it. That's where I'd struggle. I've tried before with my mates and I end up ripping out what's left of my hair. This job is just about understanding what's slowing the business down and then using tech to solve it. That could mean setting up a simple project dashboard so they can track tasks and deadlines, or helping them centralize all their paperwork in one place. You could use a platform like Odoo for this, as it has over 45 easy-to-use beginner-friendly apps which help you with sales, invoicing, projects, contracts, and much more. It's like a business toolbox where all the tools actually talk to each other. So I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10 for beginner friendliness. Now, let's look at the all-important growth potential. Here's the way I see it. It's not a matter of if these small businesses choose to update their technology, it's when. If they don't, then they'll end up going bankrupt because they won't be able to compete with new, more streamlined businesses. And on top of this, with e-invoicing now becoming a legal requirement across parts of Europe, this is clearly a need for businesses rather than a just nice to have. This kind of thing would be easy to sort out using something like the Odoo invoicing app. So demand for this kind of help is only going to go up. That's why I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10 for growth. But Mark, surely this is something AI could just take over. Well, I see where you're coming from, as the tools are getting better at a crazy fast rate. However, they still need someone to set them up and adapt them for each business. As a tech specialist, you should think of AI as something that will help make your job easier, not replace it entirely. So this one's getting a 9 out of 10 for survivability. Now let's look at the freedom factor. This job gives you complete location freedom. Once you've set up your client's systems, most of your work simply involves occasional check-ins to ensure everything's running smoothly. If you want to get set up quickly, I'd recommend using one platform to manage everything, and Odoo is a great option. I mentioned it earlier when we talked about invoicing, contracts, and task management. Honestly, it just makes your job way easier as a tech specialist. I mean, it could be as simple as using their signature app to help small businesses send and sign documents online in just a few clicks. As I've talked about it so much, I reached out to see if they wanted to sponsor this portion of the video. They agreed and are giving you your first application free for life, as well as unlimited support and hosting. With Odoo, you can walk into almost any small business and instantly start making things better. If you're interested, I'll drop a link in the description where you can get your hands on that free first app. I'm going to give this one a freedom score of 9 out of 10. Ah, nice. So it's keeping pace with job number 2 in almost every category and smashing it in survivability. Let's see if job number 4 can step things up. might need to brace yourself for this next job. A funeral sales specialist. A lot of people aren't going to like this one as it's quite morbid, but the pay is far from it. This job is all about giving families peace of mind by helping them plan ahead and protect their loved ones from future stress. So let's get into earning power. You'll start at around $75,000 a year. This is the average for pre-need funeral sales reps in the US, and top performers regularly break $90,000 to $100,000, with some hitting over $106,000 when they crush targets. So this is the highest paying job we've had so far. But how easy is it for beginners to get started? Well, there are no real qualifications needed here. I guess some sales experience would be useful, but it's not 100% needed. I'd say it's more about your empathy, confidence, and the ability to navigate emotional conversations. Because of this, I'm going to give it a beginner's score of 7 out of 10. But what about growth potential? Well, unfortunately, we're all going to die someday, and funerals aren't going out of style anytime soon. In fact, I remember reading in the Washington Post that there are now more deaths than births in most US counties, showing that the demand for end-of-life planning is only going up. Look, funerals aren't cheap. The average one costs $8,300, and if you add extras, the total can rise to nearly $10,000. So with the amount of deaths going up due to aging populations, this means that so much money is going to be spent on funerals. So growth has to be 9.5 out of 10. Another benefit of this job is that it's pretty AI proof. There's no tech about right now that can actually comfort a grieving person, not in the way an actual human being can. It hasn't lived, so how can it possibly understand death? The human connection is just something technology can't replicate. So for survivability, I'm going to rank it a 10 out of 10. Now lastly, let's talk about freedom. Although this is a remote job, there are far more time restrictions than the other jobs we've covered so far. It's not exactly a 9-to-5 clock-in corporate job, but it also doesn't give you the full-on digital nomad lifestyle. When it comes to freedom, there's a mental aspect too. And with this job, there's a lot of emotional weight you have to carry. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Now let's see how it stacks up against our current leader. Okay, wow, it's actually taken the lead in earning power and survivability. So let's see if the next one can win any categories. Job number 5 is a statistics validator. Look, companies are spending millions on ads, and you could get paid just to make sure their numbers aren't fake. I mean, have you ever wondered who actually checks those claims like 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this product? Well, that's exactly what a statistics validator does. They fact check these kinds of bold marketing claims so companies don't get sued. Entry-level roles start from around $40,000, and more experienced validators can make up to $64,000 plus bonuses per completed audit. To be honest, I'd say you do need to be a bit more skilled than all the other jobs we've talked about so far, as you need a strong analytical eye, statistic knowledge, and attention to detail. Saying this, you wouldn't need a degree, as all these things can be learnt on YouTube for free. So overall, I'm going to give this a beginner's score of 6 out of 10. However, things are looking better when it comes to growth potential. Companies are literally desperate for these roles because one wrong stat in an ad campaign could cost them millions of dollars in lawsuits. And these roles will only be more needed as time goes on. So that's got to be a 10 out of 10. But what about survivability? Well, AI can spot and scan data, but it doesn't understand nuance, intent, or legal risk behind how a stat is used in marketing. Even if it was to eventually understand these things, it's still very risky to let AI check over these kinds of claims, as they're known to make mistakes, and that's not something worth rolling the dice on. So I'm going to score this an 8.5 out of 10. You can work remotely for this one, fully online with standard hours and no surprise office visits. Of course, there is a bit of pressure on the line here because if you miss something, then it could have huge ramifications for the company. So I'm going to give this a freedom factor of 8 out of 10. Okay, let's see if it managed to win in any of the categories. Well, it's managed to tie in the growth potential category, and this is definitely important as you want your income to be able to grow in the future. Now, I have a feeling the next one is going to really shake things up. Job number 6 is a remote setter. Have you ever seen those influencers making thousands a month selling courses or coaching? They all need one thing more than anything else. Someone like you to fill their calendar. That's what a remote setter does. They slide into the DMs, ask the right questions, figure out if someone's a good fit, and then pass them to the closer to seal the deal. So if you've ever been told you talk too much, then congrats, because that skill might finally pay off. The earning power for this one is anywhere between $3,000 and $7,000 per month. And if you're hitting targets consistently, you can scale up to $84,000 a year without closing a single deal yourself. Because you're not actually being pushy and trying to close the deal, it's pretty beginner friendly, and a lot of companies will train you up. That's why I'm giving this one a score of 9 out of 10. Now let's look at growth potential. Since most companies use commission-based models, if you're good, your income can grow just as fast as the business. So for that reason, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. So pretty good so far, but how AI proof is it? Overall, this job is all about connection, trust, and timing. AI is just not there yet. So I'm giving this a survivability rating of 8.5 out of 10. As for freedom, this is where it gets interesting. Most setter jobs are remote, which is great, but they're not exactly passive. You'll be tied to your inbox throughout the day, especially during launch periods or campaigns. You're free from the office, but not from your phone. So while there's no commute, I'd say freedom lands at a 7 out of 10. So how does this compare against the last jobs? Well, it's definitely taken the top spot for earning potential. This is because it's a job that directly brings in money for the business and therefore has a clear return on investment for the company. They also want you to be incentivized to keep pushing and booking more calls. It's also tied in the beginner score category, so definitely a great one to start if you don't have a lot of experience. Let's see if job number 7 can come in and take a last minute win in any of the categories. Job number 7 is a content risk reviewer. Now, listen carefully, because this job isn't for everyone. You need to be able to handle the consequences, which I'll get into a little bit later. Content reviewers can make in the region of $80,000 per year, depending on clients or platform size. This isn't a super hard job. If you binge content and catch awkward tones or stumble across videos and think, this shouldn't be public, you're already halfway there. So I'm giving this a solid 8 out of 10 beginner score. YouTube and other social media sites make most of their money from advertisers, which means they need to make sure ads don't appear on videos that reflect badly on the brands. This happened a few years ago and was called the adpocalypse. This is when lots of brands pulled their advertising money from YouTube over fears about their ads appearing alongside inappropriate content. This cost YouTube lots of money. Therefore, they need to do everything in their power to make sure it doesn't happen again. This makes content risk reviewers so powerful. Over 500 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every single minute, which adds up to a massive 720,000 hours of new content each day. This is only expected to grow, and more content means more reviewers are needed. So this is getting a 9 out of 10 for growth potential. But surely, this is something that robots can just handle. Well, AI can scan for inappropriate content, like stuff that includes swear words, but it can't detect everything. If you need further proof, then we've seen companies like YouTube try to go down the AI route and ultimately fail and revert to human moderators, as AI just isn't up to scratch. This is why I'm giving it a survivability score of 10 out of 10. But why did I start out by saying this job isn't for everyone? Well, some flagged content you're asked to review could be highly disturbing. That's why I'm giving this a freedom factor score of 8.5 out of 10. So let's have a look at our final scoreboard. Wow, so nearly every job we've talked about today has made it onto the scoreboard for at least one category. So it's really up to you which area you want to prioritize. Let me know which one you like most in the comments below. If you want to know the 7 best side hustles students can start right now, then I'm going to leave that video right up there. But don't click on it just yet. Make sure to subscribe if you want to grow your wealth, okay? I'll see you over there.